Hey, it's Jennifer McGuire. Today I have a video for you using some of Paper Smooch's newest products, and it also shows you a fun way to combine your die cutting with your stamping for a fun masking technique. Here's the card that I'm creating here. This is just a great way to get more out of the products that you have on hand. Just a fun way to use your inks, your dies, and your stamps together. So I first started with my fake sketch here. I just took a card and I kind of drew out some patterns, traced the inside of my dies, which is where the cutting edge is on these great Sizzix dies here. I traced them onto a card just so I could figure out what placement I wanted for the masking that I'll be doing. This is the stamp set from Paper Smooches I'll be using. I think it's a fantastic one with lots of thanks greetings, and I make thank you cards more than any other kind of card. So I've just kind of planned it out. So this is just kind of like my quick sketch. You can see where I trace these with a pencil. I love these Sizzix dies because there's a lot of dies in the set. The price is good, and the cutting edge is right on the inside, so it's easy to tell where it will cut. Now I have some Eclipse masking paper here. I'm actually going to put two layers together here, and I'll explain in a little bit why I'm doing the two layers. So I've got the two layers together, and I'm going to just die cut a triangle from this and another piece where I've got two layers together. So I'm just using these two sides of triangles for the masking. Now, the reason I'm doing two layers is because I'm going to be using a really juicy ink pad for this, and I want to make sure that the ink doesn't bleed through the mask. These masks are very thin, and that's a good thing because for masking, you want a really thin mask so you can get a complete stamped image through the hole around the edge. But for this case, I had a really juicy ink pad, and I wanted to make sure it didn't bleed through. You might want to just test it first. I could have done that, but I was kind of lazy. So I'm using my T-ruler here just to make sure that my mask is going on straight here. I have my favorite white pigment ink. It's the Unicorn White Pigment Ink. And I'm going to stamp this over the mask hole here. So I want to press very firmly to make sure that it stamps entirely through the masked area. And then I just stamp also on the edge. Now with this white ink, it's kind of messy because it's a pigment ink, so you want to make sure you clean up really good so you don't end up getting ink all over yourself. Now this is my new juicy ink pad I was worried about. It probably would have been fine with one layer of masking, but I'm going to stamp right over the other but offset. So you can see the pattern is offset, creating that fun look there of the overlapping ink in some areas. It's really easy to do with clear stamps. You can see where it's stamping and make sure that you're just offset on the pattern so you can get that fun overlapping look. Now I'm going to use my T-ruler again to make sure I have enough room for my greeting, and I'm just going to line this up on the top of the T-ruler. Now I'm using that sketch from before as a guide to help me figure out where I want these triangles to be. I'm using a light craft cardstock with this technique, and this is the Desert Storm Nina light craft cardstock. I really like this one. So here I'm going to stamp the chevron pattern, the zigzag, with white ink. Now I'm going in with Tide Pool Shadow Ink over this. So you'll see I'm going to stamp it slightly offset so you get a fun overlap look. I did this in the Summer Card Camp 2 class from Online Card Classes, just a variety on this, and I thought it'd be fun just to show you how you can use masking for this too. So this is a great way to use any die shape that you have to create a fun mask for your stamping. Now I'm using a white pigment ink here, which is opaque and doesn't let as much of the craft show through. And then I'm using a dye ink over it so that some of the color shows through it because the dye ink is transparent. So that's why you get that fun look when the colors overlap. You can use any dye ink over this. I'm using the Hero Art Shadow Inks, but you could use Distress ink or any other dye ink. If you use another pigment ink, the white won't show through as much, but you also will get a good look with that too. So I'm just going to continue this. I love this stripe stamp. By the way, these little pattern stamps I'm using here are from another stamp set from Paper Smooches, Artesian Blocks. It's another new set. And I love, love, love this stripe square. I think this is going to be a great stripe to stamp on little die cuts just to give it a little bit of interest. And here I'm stamping over it in another direction. You get a fun little plaid look. I could see doing that on lots of different die cuts, just not only for masking. And down here on the bottom, I've stamped the stripes with white, and then I'm stamping over it with a yellow dye ink. So there we have some of our triangles, and I'll do a few more on here too. I'm really having fun using the technique of stamping with a dye ink over the white pigment ink on craft paper. I think it just gives a great soft look. Now with the masking of these small areas, I decided I wanted a more defined edge. So you can see there's like a white haze on the inside edges of these shapes. What I'm going to do is put my mask back on. I could have done this as I was going along, but it was an afterthought. So I've got my same white pigment ink, and I'm using a sponge dauber. I love these little guys. And I'm just rubbing a little ink from the mask onto the paper. So I'm rubbing from the outside in, just to give a little cloud of white to the edges of the triangle. I decided I needed some more here on the top, so I'm going to put the mask back down and just kind of pull some of that white in. And it gives a nice defined edge to these triangles. Sometimes I think defining the edge of shapes gives it a nice finished look. It's the same way as when you take your distress inks and ink the edge of a card or the edge of a die cut just to give it a nice finished look. Same thing I'm doing here. I'm just giving the edge of this masked area a nice defined edge by adding some of this white ink to pull the color in. And I'll just continue to do this to all the triangles until they all have the nice white edge. Now I decided I wanted to stamp a greeting in something other than black. I felt like the soft masked area that I created with the inks needed something besides a bold black greeting, so I'm using the Hero Arts charcoal ink. This is a great gray color, just a nice middle ground gray. Now as this dries, it'll smooth out and soften slightly. And I actually stamped two greetings together from that stamp set. I stamped the thank you and the for being so wonderful. Those are two different greetings that you can put together, or stamp one on the inside if you wanted to, and I also added the exclamation mark. So there you have a fun card combining die cutting and stamping for a fun masking technique. If you have any questions, please head over to my blog, and thanks for watching.